Coming up on Sports Weekly, all the hits and misses from Bowl Day. The first poll is out. Could the Seminoles finally find the aim and a national title? Did Rhett make the Mountaineers' hopes gone with the wind? Did Notre Dame's chances get lost in the shuffle? The fight for the Roses plays out in Pasadena, while Miami doesn't put up much of a fight against Arizona. We'll look back on 1993 and hear from those who made the news.
I don't think you can deal with winning unless you've had to deal with losing. And people have dealt with it now.
We'll have those trying to boldly go where they've never been before, and those who have been there. Sports Weekly catches you up on everything next.
Good morning and a belated Happy New Year. I'm Dick Schaap and welcome to Sunday Sports Day, January 2nd, 1994. 2 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. Florida State proved early this morning that if you die by the field goal, you can live by the field goal. Bobby Bowden finally has his first national championship, and we have Robin Roberts back from her holidays to lead us to our opening hour, Sports Weekly. And Robin, have you ever seen a more drawn out, more dramatic, more wrought with irony, more bizarre finish than the one early this morning?
All I can say, Dick, it is a fitting finish to a wacky college football season. Now, the plethora of bowl games was a highlight for many on New Year's Day, but not my friend you. You have to start the new year by playing a round of golf with the President of the United States. We're not worthy, Dick.
I love your company, too, but it was very exciting to spend a day, or spend a half a day playing golf with the President, and it's a great way to start the year.
Was he, I guess he was rooting for Arkansas for the national championship, but they didn't really have a shot.
But he's got a shot at the Final Four.
There you got it. All right, we'll check back with you in the morning, Dick. We begin the morning with what else? College football. We'll get to all the highlights in just a moment, but first, the final Associated Press poll was released just a couple of hours ago, and the Florida State Seminoles received 46 first-place votes to remain number one. Yes, Bobby Bowden has his national championship. The only team to beat the Noles, Notre Dame, picked up 12 first-place votes to end the year at number 2. Nebraska falls to 3, followed by the SEC's Auburn and Florida. Rose Bowl champion Wisconsin is number 6. West Virginia drops all the way to number 7. Later, we'll show you the entire AP Top 25 poll. Charlie Ward already had his Heisman, and he was looking to become the first player since Tony Dorsett to also claim the national championship in the same season. But as Dick alluded to just a moment ago, the Orange Bowl will be remembered most for its dramatic and bizarre ending. To the Orange Bowl we go. 2 questions. Could Tom Osborne win in Florida, or could Bobby Bowden win a national championship? The Huskers shuck the underdog label, leading 7-6 in the third, but this 40-yard pass from Charlie Ward to Kevin Knox's Money in the Bank. William Floyd flies over the top. A replay showed he may have fumbled before crossing the goal line, but backup Lawrence Phillips of Nebraska takes it in. They tried for 2 and failed. Huskers down by 2. Tommy Frazier back in, leading the Huskers downfield. 31-yard pickup, plus a costly personal foul penalty. White knuckle time for the Noles. So with 1:16 to go, number 13 is lucky. Byron Bennett hits from 27 yards up. Huskers on a high. They're up 16-15. But FSU charges back. 21 seconds left. Great Scott Bentley, good from 22 yards out. The Huskers charge downfield. Bobby Bowden celebrates a bit early. A second was left on the clock. Bennett can't hit it from 45 yards out. Oh, my goodness. The Noles win it 18-16. Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward completed 24 of 43 for 286 yards and was named the game's MVP despite getting sacked 5 times and failing to throw a touchdown pass for just the 3rd time this season. But this game was anything but the blowout many expected.
I had confidence in myself, and I had confidence in the Lord, and he gave me the strength to do it.
What thoughts went through your mind walking out there?
Danny Cannell, the holder, my friend, he said, you better jump in my arms because I know you're going to make it. And after that, I had all the confidence in the world.
Well, as with any last drive, you know, you're always concerned about giving up the big play, and I think sometimes that can be your worst nightmare. I mean, instead of doing what got you there, instead of blitzing and those sort of things, you tend to lay back a little bit, but, you know, we just didn't get the job done. He's a good quarterback. We're not taking anything away from Charlie Ward.
It was all odds against us coming into the season, and we ended up the #1 team, and I'm very happy for all of us, not just myself, but my teammates, and just have to thank the Lord for everything.
Among those gathered at the Orange Bowl last night were, of course, our College Game Day crew, Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Craig James, and they join us now live from the Orange Bowl in Miami with some analysis. My goodness, gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Robin. What a game last night, and what a season. Bobby Bowden getting a very sweet overnight delivery of a national championship following a Federal Express Orange Bowl victory. For Tom Osborne, it's got to be bitter. This one may be even tougher than the game here 10 years ago. His long title quest continues. As for the polls now, we know Florida State's won the AP championship. I think we strongly predict they'll also win the coaches poll. Notre Dame maybe could have made it closer by playing a closer game. If you think maybe the closeness of the score last night could have caused some wavering of support as far as the Florida State voters, didn't happen, Lee. They actually gained more votes since the last regular season poll. Notre Dame got 11 more first-place votes, but it really wasn't close at all.
Chris, I agree with the polls. I think Florida State is number one and Notre Dame is number two, and I think this is going to lead to a 1996 national championship game, and the reason why? Money. Fox took CBS out of college football. I mean, I took them out of the football business. I think they got the extra money. I think you'll see CBS come back in and have a championship game along with college football in 96. 96, the reason, is the fact that that's the year the contracts are up.
Well, I think that you got to look at the overall poll and realize this maybe was the toughest vote in a long time, because Notre Dame really did. They beat them on the field, so it was tough for anybody to vote them behind Florida State. In terms of Auburn, think about them. There's an undefeated team, but because of probation, they didn't have a chance to win it on New Year's Day. Auburn's sitting at home, and I got to agree that that's the right thing for them not to be the national champion.
The Tigers, the first team with a perfect record not to win a national championship since Rutgers in '76. And the irony, Bobby Bowden's son, of course, the team that coached that game. Nebraska fans will always talk about the controversy and the penalties. Uncharacteristic of an Osborne team. They were flagged 11 times, some critical calls in the ball game, and many people will believe this helped decide the game. Tom Osborne, your first call you have to look at, Corey Dixon's punt return. Right there, they throw the beanbag down. That's not the flag. They haven't flagged it yet. We don't think they're going to throw the flag on these two guys. It's the block right here, we believe, that they called the clip on.
Well, and there are three areas. It could have come here later on. Number 5 at the top of your screen. That could have been the call. I mean, it just wasn't a blatant clip.
William Floyd in the third quarter. Does he fumble it? It's as close a bang-bang play as I've ever seen. They rule it a touchdown. Nebraska fans will disagree. And then the final seconds, Frazier completes the pass over the middle. Watch the clock. 1 second. It's a correct call to stop it automatically, but it's as gutsy decision as I've seen with the melee that was going on the field there.
But they've got to make that call. That was the proper thing to do. But the other thing about the fumble going in for the touchdown, the play before the guy had scored, they should have given it to him. They said his momentum had stopped. Baloney. That was a touchdown then.
You talk about a gutsy call. Just before Scott Bentley's kick, they had a 15-yard unnecessary roughness on the Nebraska sideline. That official called that play right in front of all the Nebraska people. Boy, that took a lot of nerve. And the important part about that is it got closer enough so that Bentley could kick it smooth without trying to kick a long one, which he might yank left or right.
It was a Big East officiating crew. You talked about that penalty. A lot of penalties of aggression for Nebraska, and aggression really the main focus of their game plan on both sides of the ball.
I was really impressed with the way Nebraska was able to go out and play aggressively in their front seven. Florida State's offensive line said they were really confused. They didn't really know when they were blitzing, when they were pulling out. Hats off, because, man, in a game like this, when the defense can control the powerful offensive line of an offense, that's when you get your chance.
And Lee, you talked about Scott Bentley, the guy who was recruited to win a national championship. 4 out of 5, 4 field goals being an Orange Bowl record.
Well, you think about this. When anytime you kick a field goal, it's a team effort. The center, the holder, the place kicker, and all the linemen. In this case, watch this. It's a great hold by Danny Cannell. Scott Bentley goes from hero, Sports Illustrated #1 guy, to the kicker that wins the national title. Can you believe that? What a year for that young guy.
And it started out so poorly, both the year and this game, with a bad miss, a terrible miss in his first attempt. He comes back and kicks 4. Saw him last night after the game, and he told me that he actually felt okay until Charlie Ward said something to him as he trotted off the field before the final kick. He said, "It's all in your hands now." After that, he got shaky and he looked pale, according to Danny Cannell, his holder. But all's well that ends well for Scott Bentley. We'll come back and talk more about this ball game and the big picture a little bit later on in Sports Weekly. Let's go back to you now, Robin.
All right, gentlemen, thanks for getting up so early after a late night. Not since 1985 has a college football team began and ended the season #1. The Oklahoma Sooners were the last to do it before the Noles. In fact, the Sooners have accomplished that feat 4 times. West Virginia came into its Sugar Bowl matchup with a perfect 11-0 mark and its own aspirations for the #1 spot. Standing in their way, the Florida Gators. And they were looking large all night. First quarter, 7-0 West Virginia. Terry Dean hands off to Eric Rett. Good cut right there. Tying the game at 7-all. 3 touchdowns on the night for Eric Rett. Darren Studstill received the hit of the night. He scrambles and, oh, he's just leveled by Monty Grove. Studstill, hello. I don't think he knows where he is yet. Next play, Studstill still in, gets hit throwing the ball, intercepted by Lawrence Wright, and he goes the right way, twisting and turning. It went for 52 yards, more like 100. Florida up 14-7. The Gators rolled from there, 41-7. So the Mountaineers' national championship quest abruptly comes to an end. Eric Rett rushed for 105 yards, 3 touchdowns, and was named the game's most valuable player. For the second year in a row, the Fighting Irish face Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. Kevin McDougal on the option. He's in from 19 yards out. Irish up 7-zip. It was 7-all in the second. But what's this? Corey Pullig, Dejon Smith for the touchdown. A&M aiming for the upset, up 14-7 at the half, but tied 21-all in the fourth. Last gasp, Pendergast hits from 31 yards out. The Irish win 24-21. Those helmets are golden. Irish win a crowning season, 11-1. 24-21 is the final. The Fighting Irish in the year, as I say, 11-1. Their only loss to Boston College. After the game, Lou Holtz reminded pollsters that Notre Dame's head-to-head loss to Miami was the reason the Canes won the national title in '89, even though both teams had one loss. Could Wisconsin pull off its first Rose Bowl victory at the expense of UCLA? Brent Moss gets the handoff, goes in from 3 yards out. He had 158 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Terry Donahue's Bruins trail 14-3 at the half. In the third, same score. Fight breaks out after a pile-up. 4 players toss, all starters, 2 of them seniors. You do not want to end your college career this way. After a UCLA touchdown to make it 14-10 Wisconsin, sophomore quarterback Darrell Bevel scrambles, gets out of the pocket. He's not the fastest guy, but he knows how to use his blockers. 21-10 Wisconsin. It was Bevel's only carry. 21-16 Wisconsin. UCLA driving with no timeouts. Wayne Cook scrambles to the middle of the field. The clock is just going to tick off Barry Alvarez, and the Badgers go on with your bad self. 21-16 is the final. Terry Donahue's 8-game winning streak in bowl games comes to an end, primarily because of 6 turnovers. The first Rose Bowl victory for the Badgers, and just their second bowl victory in the school's 104-year history. We certainly are glad you decided to share the first Sunday of 1994 with us. Coming up next, Beto Cook will tell us who he believes is a national champion in college football. And then later in the morning, we'll take a look back at '93, the triumphs and the friends we lost. And we'll complete yesterday's bowl rundown, including Heath Schuler and the Tennessee Vols trying to put the squeeze on the Nittany Lions at the Citrus Bowl. Back in a moment. Bowl action from New Year's Day, beginning with the Citrus Bowl, which featured Penn State and the Tennessee Vols. Joe Paterno with a chance to tie Paul Bear Bryant with the most bowl victories, that being 15. Heath Schuler and Phil Fulmer analyzing their game plan. First quarter, 3-0 Tennessee. Schuler to Corey Fleming over the middle. He gets in. 10-0 Vols. Second quarter, Tennessee by 6. Kajana Carter takes it from 14 yards out. Lions up by 4 at the half. Schuler sees it slipping away. Back to pass. He meets most of the Lions' defensive line. He was sacked twice on the day. In the fourth, Kerry Collins finds a near corner, and Bobby Ingram, Lions cruise 31-13. How about the Fiesta, Miami and Arizona? Ryan Collins beat the swarm. Akeel Jackson with a nifty interception. Then Frank Costa introduced the Arizona D, and Outland Trophy winner Rob Waldrop. 4 sacks for the Desert Swarm. And the Zona O, oh yeah, Chuck Levy, enough said. 68 yards, outrunning the Miami defensive backs. Cats in a rout, 29-zip. The first Canes shutout since 1979. CarQuest Bowl, Boston College, and the Virginia Cavaliers. Tom Coughlin and the troops, they're ready to get after it. Glenn Foley making a case for the pros. One great throw here in stride. He hits Clarence Cannon. 78 yards it goes for. 10-7 Eagles in the lead. In the third, Foley shows off that arm again. Oh, Keith Miller's wide open. Foley, 391 yards, gives BC the 31-13 win. About the Hall of Fame, Michigan and the Wolfpack In the first, Tyrone Wheatley off to the right side. 26 yards later, he's in the end zone. 7-0 Michigan. They would not look back. In the second, Derek Alexander takes the punt, weaving through the D. He finds some daylight. He goes 79 yards for the touchdown, a Hall of Fame record. One Michigan mistake, though. Gary Moeller, he's in the blue and yellow shirt. He's the head coach, but his assistants got drenched. 42-7 is the route. The AP poll is already out. The coaches poll will be released shortly to put an end to this wild and wacky college season. Dick Schaap and Beto Cook have recovered from a day of bowl watching to sort it all out. Dick.
Thank you, Robin. Beto, fortunately, that was a one-sided game in the Sugar Bowl, so we were able to concentrate on the Orange Bowl. How good was that game to your thinking? Did it measure up to the Boston College Notre Dame game?
Yes, it's going to rate as one of the great college games of all time because of the action, especially in the last 2 minutes. The missed field goal by Nebraska after the players were going off the field. It was a memorable game, unbelievable.
Were you convinced that at one point that Nebraska had it won?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I thought it was over. I thought it was over when they kicked the field goal. And I said Charlie Ward's great, but he hasn't done it all evening. But he did it. He took him down, and they kicked the field goal. And Scott Bentley, I guess he's about the youngest person to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated since not a common each. But he did come through. It's ironic. His father went to Notre Dame, and he went to Florida State.
Who did Nadia Comaneci play for? Which football team was she with?
Middle East,
okay.
Romania.
Now, with only one undefeated team in the country, Auburn, is this going to inspire the college playoff system in the next year or two?
I think we're going to have the playoff system, and this season won't have anything to do with it. Money will have everything to do with it. We will have a playoff before the end of the decade for money. I mean, these games could have been terrible games, and there could have been no dispute. We're going to have a playoff, and they're going to do it for one reason, money.
When you do have a playoff and they're picking one team to be the national champion, will the games be more like the Sugar Bowl game or more like the Orange Bowl game?
More like the Orange Bowl game.
You expect it to stay that good? Okay,
yes.
Who were the four teams? This way you can do your top five. Show me who the four teams were that you would have in a playoff this year. And show me your number 5, too.
Okay, I would have number 5 is Wisconsin. Okay, the 4 teams that have been in the playoff would be number 4, Nebraska. Now I have Auburn number 3, but I don't know, number 2, Notre Dame, and number 1, finally, for Bobby Bowden. We put this hat on and named him the king of college football. The 4th team, the other team, if you had a playoff, and you're not counting Auburn, it would probably be Florida. Florida,
well, you have
Virginia.
Wisconsin there, too, so...
Yeah, I have Wisconsin, correct, excuse me. I got confused.
It's certainly the most surprising team in the final 5.
Yeah, I think it was an unbelievable game for Wisconsin to win. Jeff Greenfield, who is an ABC News commentator, has to be very, very happy. They had a great party in Madison, and it was a great football season. And all I'm saying about a playoff is the regular season games would be like the NBA games during the regular season. They wouldn't mean anything. All those games in November, hey, we're going to have a playoff. But the 4 teams, again, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Notre Dame, and Florida State, and it would be a good playoff.
Thank you very much, Bino.
See you in 1994.
We already have. I don't think you should wear that hat all the time.
Okay.
Back to you, Robin.
Okie dokie. As Sunday Sports Day rolls on, we'll take a look back at the year in sports, including the comebacks and also the many setbacks of '93. And the NHL didn't take the holiday off. The Leafs and the Kings, with their all-star laden lineups, were part of a New Year's slate. Look at how they started '94 is next. Not the NHL. The LA Kings don't mind playing on the first day of the new year. They hit the road to take on the Maple Leafs, looking for their 6th straight New Year's Day victory. Western All-Star starter Felix Potvin would have a rough night. First period, 1-0 Kings. Rob Blake the shot. Tomas Sandstrom puts in the rebound. He had 2 goals last night. 2-0 still in the first. Mike Donnelly breaks in the left side. Snaps it by Potvin. He was yanked after 1. 3-0 L.A. Damon Rhodes in for Potvin. Wayne Gretzky on the power play with the slapper beats Rhodes. Hit 17th of the year. But you know what the best side of the night? Walter Gretzky, Wayne's dad, was at the game. Kings win at 7-4. Whaler coach Pierre Maguire all fired up. Why? His goalie, Sean Burke, superb in goal. 51 saves. Here he stops Derek King. Tied 3-all in the third. Jeff Sanderson, one times it past Ron Hextall. Whalers win 4-3. Here are other NHL scores from Saturday. Coming up next, a look back at the final week of '93, including season-ending surgery for the Yankees' richest minor league pitcher. 1993 went out with a bang for some. In baseball, a couple of National Leaguers picked up some shiny new contracts, while some NHL stars had some shining moments. But amid all the good fortune, some disturbing news. More reports surfaced this week of Russian-born NHL players allegedly being targeted by extortionists in their homeland. Carl Ravage has more in the Week in Review.
Alexei Zhitnik of the LA Kings claims organized crime figures in his native Ukraine ordered him to pay money in exchange for guaranteeing the safety of his family still living there. Zhitnik says he never paid the money, but other players say the demands and threats are a reality.
I know the story. He did pay some amount of money to mafia, and well, it's just a sad situation, and well, I think the league and I don't know who, somebody have to do something about this.
One newspaper has also reported that Pavel Bure of the Canucks has been approached, a claim Bure has denied. In action on the ice this week, a milestone for the Rangers' Mike Gartner.
Kovalev moves in, centers Gartner,
The goal was Gartner's 600th as he joined Howe, Hull, Esposito, Dion, and Gretzky in the very elite 600 club. A milestone for the great one this week as well. He was the top vote getter for this year's All-Star game. Unbelievably, it was the first time Gretzky received the most votes. So how did he celebrate? Tuesday, the great one fired a shot that bounced off a group of players and into midair. From there, he took a swing and batted in what may go down as the goal of the year. Some bad news from hockey's other megastar this week. The Penguins were hoping Mario would return from back problems sometime this month, but Tuesday, Lemieux said his return will likely occur in March. The injury news much more definite for the Yankees' Brian Taylor. New York's #1 pick in the '91 draft will miss the entire '94 season after having surgery on his pitching shoulder Tuesday. Taylor injured his $1 million arm in a fight December 18th in North Carolina. Millions on the mind of Giants third baseman Matt Williams. Tuesday, he signed a 5-year, $30.75 million deal. In '93, Williams put up a career-high 38 homers, as well as driving in 110 runs. Lenny Dykstra officially picked up his millions on Thursday, Nails signing a 4-year deal for $24.9 million after hitting .348 with 4 homers and 8 RBIs in the World Series. In college hoop, the University of Cincinnati lost its big star. Freshman Dontonio Wingfield will miss 3 to 6 weeks due to a stress fracture in his right foot. Wingfield, the Bearcats' leading rebounder, and is averaging nearly 17 points a game. And finally, in a follow-up to a story we aired last Sunday, Virginia high school star Allen Iverson was released from prison on Thursday. Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder granted clemency to Iverson dependent on the following conditions. Iverson must get family counseling, observe a nightly curfew, and not play sports while on furlough that will last until August 23rd.
Later here on Sunday Sports Day, we'll head back to the Orange Bowl for more on last night's title tilt and a look back at an exciting season in college football. But first, is Jimmy Johnson looking for employment in Florida? We've got the details next. Stay with us, everyone. NFL, like everyone else, has its New Year's resolutions, and one of the loudest of the week was primetime. Deion Sanders saying he may only play baseball next year because he felt he was slighted and not being offered a contract extension before the NFL salary cap deadline. Linda Cohn has a look at the final week of 1993.
The NFL has several New Year's resolutions as it enters its final week of play. The first is an NFC East champion, and last week both the Cowboys and Giants accommodated. Sunday, Dallas led Washington 7-3 after the first, but then the Cowboys exploded for 31 unanswered points. The most spectacular, Kevin Williams' 62-yard punt return for a touchdown. Cowboys 38-3 over the Skins. Meanwhile, in Phoenix, the Cardinals made one last effort to save Joe Bugle's job. The Giants got off to a 6-0 lead, but behind Ron Moore's 2 rushing touchdowns, the Cardinals rallied for a 17-6 win, setting up the showdown at the Meadowlands for the NFC East title. Dallas's resolution for this year may be team harmony. Wednesday, the New York Daily News quoted Emmitt Smith as saying about Jerry Jones, "This man preached to me about a cap and that I needed to make sacrifices." You didn't hear that same stuff with Troy.
Things are different. Troy, of course, is an 8-year agreement. Emmitt's was for 4 years. You've got to look at the fact that quarterbacks are obviously paid a lot more money than running backs are.
On Friday, ESPN's Chris Mortensen discussed the possibility of Jimmy Johnson perhaps leaving the Cowboys for a GM coach's role with the expansion Jacksonville Jaguars.
Of course guys are intrigued, and of course I'm intrigued. I think any individual, whether it be a coach or somebody that's an executive with a particular company, anybody other than the person that owns the deal, they're going to explore options.
In the AFC, its resolution may be a team that can challenge the Houston Oilers. Buffalo eked out a 16-14 win over the Jets, Bills kicker Steve Christie nailing 3 field goals, while his counterpart, Carrie Blanchard, missed 3, including the potential game winner with under a minute left. On Wednesday, an arbitrator ruled that 35 members of the Skins must pay their dues by Friday's game against the Vikings or be suspended. A federal judge, though, on Thursday refused this order of suspension of Redskin players and allowed the unpaid Skins to play in Friday's game. Maybe they shouldn't have, you see, because the Redskins failed to score a TD in their last 2 games as they helped the Vikings earn a playoff spot with a 14-9 loss. Happy New Year to all.
It is a final week like no other in the NFL. Playoff spots and home field advantage are at stake all around the league. And, of course, we're already in place at the key sites. Greg Garber is at the Meadowlands to kick off our coverage.
Thanks, Robin. It's January. It's the Meadowlands. There's snow on the sidelines, but cold won't affect the outcome of this game. Game time temperatures expected 35 to 38, and that's good news for the Dallas offense. On the injury front, left tackle Jumbo Elliott of the Giants, who has been out of 5 of the last 6 games with back spasms, will try to play. In passing situations, he'll try to block Charles Haley, who also has back spasms. The good news for the Giants, Michael Brooks, the inside linebacker who has missed the last 3 games with a sprained foot, will play. He'll try to stop Emmitt Smith from getting his 3rd straight rushing title. The Cowboys are confident. They've won 4 straight games. The Giants are coming off a very tough loss to Phoenix. And now let's go to Detroit and Andrea Kramer, where the Lions and the Packers are playing for a division title as well.
Thanks a lot, Greg. The winner between the Packers and the Lions takes the Central Division title today. And in fact, barring a tie here, the winner hosts the loser in next week's wild card playoff. For the Lions, this would be their 2nd division title in 3 years. But for the Packers, this would be their 1st division crown since 1972, which happens to be the last time they made the playoffs in a non-strike year. For the Packers, if they win the division, it would also end the longest such drought for any NFC team. The last time these 2 teams met, the Packers won handily, and the Lions had Barry Sanders. Sanders will miss his 5th straight game today. He'll be replaced by Eric Lynch, who last week in his first pro start had 131 yards of combined offense. The Lions will also have Eric Kramer, who's been terrific since he's been installed as the starter. 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, completing 72% of his passes. But he better watch out for the Packers' pass rush. 8 sacks last week against the Raiders. If the Lions use 4 wideouts, look for the Packers to bring a lot of heat. That's it for the Silverdome. Now let's check in with Mark Malone in Foxborough.
All right, thank you, Andrea. We are under clear skies here in Foxborough. Game time temperatures expected to be about 40 degrees for a game that New Englanders are calling the Patriots Super Bowl game. Of course, they're taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are in a 4-game losing skid right now. Their defense decimated with injuries. Webster, Vincent, Offerdahl, and Oliver all out with injuries on the defense. However, I talked to inside linebacker John Offerdahl late yesterday, said his hamstring feels better, and he's expected to play. It'll be a battle of defenses. Miami's given up 92 points in the last 2 games, while New England's defense has only allowed 91 points over the last 9 games, best in the NFL. Let's go back to you in the studio, Robin.
All right, more, of course, on NFL Game Day at noon. But next, it's back to Craig, Chris, and the coach to put the wraps on last night's wild college football action. Back in a moment.
You hoped you would...
It is time for Face Off, our weekly war of words, wit, and wisdom. And now that the college football season has come to an end, without an official champion, who is number one? Is it Florida State, or is it Notre Dame, or is it Auburn? That's the subject of our Face Off today between Mitch Albom, the author of Fab Five, who admits Michigan is not number one in football, and Skip Bayless, the author of The Boys, who admits Texas A&M is not number one. Bayless kicks off the debate.
Mitch, I'll tell you what, I'm not Catholic and I'm not a big Lou Holtz supporter, but without a playoff system, Notre Dame has done all it can to prove it's number one. It beat Florida State head-to-head. What's the number one NFL tiebreaker? Head-to-head. Now beat that.
Well, I'm glad I don't move furniture around for you, Skip, because you'd be one of those guys, put it here, no, put it here, no, put it here. The only thing worse than a lousy system, and it is a lousy system, is an inconsistent lousy system. If you're going to use the polls, you got to stay with the polls. Florida State was number one in one poll, number two in another. It wins. It moves up. It wins. You don't suddenly say, you know what, we've been rethinking.
Wait a second.
Four
Time out.
number one.
Time out. Your team of the century, Florida State, last night against Nebraska, a very ordinary Nebraska team, looked very shaky. Shouldn't have won that game. In fact, I think that Nebraska got robbed in that game. Now, how do you respond to that?
How is it such an ordinary Nebraska team that went 11-0? And don't give me this transitive property. Otherwise, Northwestern wins the title because Northwestern beat Boston College. Boston College beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Right, it's garbage. Hey. Number four doesn't move to number one. If you don't like the system, put in a playoff, but don't reinvent the system.
Did you see how impressive that Notre Dame was yesterday against Texas A&M?
Yeah, they won
Dallas
by a field goal. They won by a field goal.
Yeah, Florida State's at home in Miami.
Won by a field goal.
That's
Did
ridiculous.
Florida State not beat Florida, which then turned around and beat an undefeated team?
Hey, what about the precedent in 1989 that Miami won this very same way that Notre Dame should win today?
Why do neither of you give Auburn even a mention, the only undefeated major college?
Well, if you put Auburn in there, then that's another Bowden, so it's Florida State.
You've lost me again?
So two Bowdens beat one Osborne. Is that the point of view?
That's exactly it.
Bill Conlon will be joining Mitch and Skip on the Sports Reporters coming up on the hour, and they'll settle all the questions about the NFL. Back to you, Robin.
All right, guys, it's the morning after in Miami, and a season full of excitement and controversy is almost over for college football. So let's head back to Miami and Chris, Craig, and the coach for some final thoughts. Chris?
Welcome back to this old house where Bowden and the Seminoles have finally netted the long-awaited national championship after yet another great game in this building. Was it a thing of beauty? No, but for courage and guts of a Nebraska team fighting back after losing their leading rusher and leading receiver to injury, and a quarterback under tremendous pressure for Florida State leading a dramatic march. Mike Tirico looks back at the drive that set up the kick.
76 seconds, 65 yards, one national title.
The first thing that came out of our mouth was we got Charlie Ward. I mean, this wasn't a fluke. I mean, he's unbelievable and one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Well, I'm very happy that they ended this way. They tried to give him a chance, and I mean, it was all odds against us coming into the season, and we ended up the number one team, and I'm very happy for all of us.
After converting a fourth down run, Ward, on the drive he finally looked like a Heisman winner, took advantage of a softer Nebraska defense.
Well, as with any last drive, you know, you're always concerned about giving up the big play, and I think sometimes that can be your worst nightmare. I mean, instead of doing what got you there, instead of blitzing and those sort of things, you tend to lay back a little bit, but, you know, we just didn't get the job done.
Then it was up to Scott Bentley, the SI cover boy, recruited to help Bowden win a national championship. Now the freshman faced those title goalposts.
Danny Cannell, the holder, my friend, he said you better jump in my arms because I know you're going to make it. And after that, I had all the confidence in the world.
But it wasn't over. 20 seconds later, Bowden's elusive national title rested on the opposing kicker's foot.
That's got to be one of the most exciting 2 minutes I've ever been seen. And I found out the formula. It's not wide right, it's wide left. That's where we went, wide left.
Had they not kicked the winning field goal, Charlie Ward's brilliant career may have been noted for 2 drives in his senior season that ended in failure.
Well, you talk about that drive. Florida State, all the talent that they have at wide receiver, was forcing Nebraska back deep, and it allowed a linebacker, or forced a linebacker, to cover Ward Dunn underneath. And in terms of defense overall, one thing that I've really seen, especially this year, is that great defenses with 5 weeks to prepare can slow down these high-powered offenses. Look at Alabama last year in the Sugar Bowl with Miami. You think about what happened here in the Orange Bowl, and look at Tennessee, Heath Shuler. And they were shut down by Penn State.
My friends, I've been associated with college football now for 36 years, and I learned something new for the first time this year. Never try to pick a winner of 1 versus 2 in a bowl game until you get in the sight of the game and look in the eyes of the players. It happened last year at Alabama over Miami. This year, Nebraska's eyes were more focused than Florida State. They should have won the ball game. It was a great situation, but let me tell you something. I'm never going to pick 1 versus 2 again until I look them right there in the eyes.
Tom Osborne does not have his title. Nebraska has not ended their bowl losing streak, but they certainly have earned respect. And it's ironic. Bobby Bowden told a close friend last night this may have been his worst coaching performance ever. He didn't feel he was ready. He freely admitted that Tom Osborne and his staff outcoached him. If it's going to bring him the long-awaited title, I think he'll take a few more terrible coaching performances like this. 18-16, a wild, ironic, dramatic finish to what's been a crazy season of college football. We'll be talking about this national championship race for a long time.
Good job, gentlemen. A bit later, we'll see as well as hear the memorable moments of 1993.
I love the game of basketball, I always will. I just feel that at this particular time in my career, I've reached the pinnacle of my career. I've achieved a lot in that short amount of time, if you want to call it short.
93 certainly had its share of memorable moments on and off the fields and courts. Some of the sports world's big names became leading news stories as well. It was a year of great triumph, but sadly, also a year of great tragedy. Frank DeFord bids farewell to 1993.
To the 1993 sports year, good riddance. If this year were a player, it would be put on waivers. A coach, it would be fired. An owner, it would be shipped to Indianapolis in the middle of the night. A golfer, it would miss the cut. Let's be honest, 1993 was simply a loser for everybody. Well, except maybe for the World Boxing Association, which calls it a draw. First, though, the tragedies. Oh my, the sadness we have seen. There are always a few young athletes who die in any one year, but the horror was somehow greater in 93. Steve Olin and Timmy Cruz, Cliff Young later, Davey Allison and Alan Klawicki. Poor Heather Farr finally succumbed to breast cancer. Poor Jeff Alm to one awful, sudden demon vision. Reggie Lewis chose to try and come back. Will we ever know that if he had stayed out of basketball, he would have lived? And will we ever know if Michael Jordan would have stayed in basketball if his father had lived?
The biggest positive thing that I can take out of my father not being here with me today is that he saw my last basketball game, and that means a lot.
Mercifully, Bobby Hurley survived his accident, but Drazen Petrovic's death broke the heart of a whole country that has so little else to cheer for. Monica Seles won the Australian Open, and Julie Crone became the first woman to win a Triple Crown race, and then what kind of a mad jinx year it was. Prairie Bayou took the Preakness, then had to be put down in his next race. The greatest hockey player on earth, Mario Lemieux, was diagnosed with Hodgkin disease. He came back so gallantly, but in the end, his Penguins lost. Golf was one sport that seemed to be on a boom. The game's box office hero, Greg Norman, finally won another British Open and was about to win his first American major, the PGA. But then that 1993 curse kicked in again. Paul Azinger caught Norman, and then, sadly, months later in December, Azinger was diagnosed with lymphoma. Of course, the saving grace to sport is that even in the worst of times, somebody has to win. Except that is in college football, where once again in 1993, the season was spoiled because nobody in college football ever has agreed on how to conduct a championship the way they do in every sport everywhere else in the world. In 93, in other sports, when somebody had to win, even then they invariably won ugly. I mean, for goodness sake, we already know that anybody can whip the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, except for Leon Lett. The Final Four was decided on a lousy timeout. And history has already determined that Joe Carter didn't win this World Series. Mitch Williams blew it. And imagine anybody being so awful he's not good enough to play with these dirtbags. Even for the players, baseball took forever in 93. Pro football only seems that way. Congratulations to the Fox Television Network for buying a 4-year supply of outlet passes and field goals. In fact, this year was so terrible, I'm afraid that even the Nike ads stunk. In the final analysis, though, there were 2 deaths that most symbolized this sad and dreary year. Jim Valvano and Arthur Ashe were both in their 40s, no longer competitors on the field, but young men in life when they left us a few months ago.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul. And those 3 things are going to carry on forever.
Valvano represented the joy and the spontaneity of sport, Ash the grace and honor. And for some reason, it was precisely these kinds of qualities that were so lacking broadly in almost all our sports during the last 12 months. So curiously, 1993 just wasn't much fun, and it wasn't much special. So here's to better times ahead, better games, and a happier new sports year.
What were some of my favorite moments from '93? Well, I guess I'd have to start with MJ's retirement. I can still hear his last comments to the media. And I know at least one coach who's glad he's gone, Pat Riley. Poor Pat. This is how he looked before the playoffs with the Jordanaires. And this is how he looked after. The Knicks never got back to Phoenix for that bus ride with Charles. It was not to be in '93. They missed out on all the fun. You just never know which celebrities will show up out there in the Arizona desert. Or in Chicago. Funny, I kind of thought Madonna would be more of a WWF fan. Although there was that time she was taking batting lessons from Canseco. I wonder if this year she'd like him to teach her how to catch fly balls with his head. And if she's at all interested in chewing a wad, I know just the right teacher. Baseball's new ambassador, Mr. Lenny Dykstra. In fact, just watching his whole team chew could give even the best fan indigestion. Yeah, '93 was a historical year for baseball. Without a commissioner, the owners had to put themselves in the doghouse. And the writers sent only one player to the hall. You already know what that's going to mean for Reggie. More sales. And one of the biggest of the bigs finally retired his pitching arm, but not before he made history, boxing history. Which reminds me, there's one guy who wants this new year to be over before it even starts. Hey, Mike, did you know there are only 356 days till Christmas?
Coming up next here on Sunday Sports Day, more memories from 1993. The Cowboys' Emmitt Smith knows he may be small in stature, but he more than makes up for it.
The only thing I can say to them people is you can measure size, weight, height, speed, and all those things, but you cannot measure individual heart.
Every sport in 1993, some for what they did, others for what they said. Sometimes the quotes were more powerful than the pictures. Here's a look and a listen back at the people and events we'll remember from 1993, this time in the athletes' own words.
When I lose the sense of motivation and the sense of to prove something as a basketball player, it's time for me to move away from the game of basketball. It's not because I don't love the game. I love the game of basketball, I always will. I just feel that at this particular time in my career, I've reached the pinnacle of my career. I've achieved a lot in that short amount of time, if you want to call it short. But I just feel that I don't have anything else for myself to prove.
I don't know if I should call out individual names on the air because I would feel like I would be doing them people injustice. But they know who they are. They do know who they are. And the only thing I can say to them people is you can measure size, weight, height, speed, and all those things, but you cannot measure individual heart. And I feel like I have one of the biggest hearts in the world.
It's a fact. It's going to be hard. I have to get over it because it did happen on the court and I was sitting in a match. And I'll be in that position many more times if I want to continue playing tennis, and I'll have to deal with it. But I told myself when the time comes, I'll deal with it, and I'm going to try to not prepare myself, but face it that it's a fact.
I don't think college players should be paid. I do think the NCAA does need to implement rules to help students instead of hurt them, because if you have to realize kids like me or kids that come from the inner city, you know, like I do, where we come from, it's not that easy, you know. Of course, you're giving us education, cool, but we're making a lot of money for the university. So if they sell my T-shirt, why can't you put that in a college fund or something away from me in the bank? There's no guarantee. What about the players that they make money off of that get hurt, or say I would have never make it to the NBA, but they sold millions of number 4 jerseys? Why not put it in a fund and just hold it there? And if I make it and if I'm okay, then you keep it. But if not, then, you know, if I need it, you know, you can let me have it since it's off of me. I just think there needs to be sort of insurance for us, just in case we don't do it, because the colleges are getting rich off of us.
Dang right I'm a winner. I've lost, but you tell me some winners that haven't lost. I don't think you can deal with winning unless you've had to deal with losing. And people, I've dealt with it now in a big way.
Quite a year to say the least. Before we leave you, let's take another look at the final Associated Press college football poll. We showed you 1 through 10 earlier. Florida State remaining on top, receiving 46 first-place votes. Notre Dame jumps from 4 to 2. Nebraska falls to number 3. With their loss of the Gators, West Virginia falls from 3 to 7. And Penn State jumped 5 places to number 8. Now for the rest of the final AP Top 25. In case you miss any of the bowl highlights from New Year's Day, we'll have them for you again in 30 minutes on SportsCenter. And we'll also have the results of the coaches poll. Now, early indications are Florida State is expected to be number 1 in that poll as well as they are in the AP poll, making it unanimous. We'll go live to Miami for a reaction at 11:30.